I always thought the creepiest stories were the ones that could actually happen. Not the monsters in the woods or the haunted castles in Europe, but the quiet, everyday moments when something feels just a little off. That's why, when I booked an Airbnb for a weekend getaway, I didn't expect anything more than some questionable furniture, maybe a drafty window, and a locked closet I wasn't supposed to open. But I'll tell you now, what I found in that house still makes my skin crawl, and every time I close my eyes, I wonder if someone, somewhere, is still watching me. It started when I needed a place to stay after a last-minute work trip got extended. Hotels in the area were full, and the only thing available within my budget was a small Airbnb just outside the city. The listing looked fine, generic photos of a clean but unremarkable bedroom, a tidy kitchen, and a living room with a faded couch. The host's profile was practically empty, no reviews, just a name I don't even remember anymore. Normally, that would have been a red flag, but I was exhausted and out of options. When I arrived, the place looked even barer than in the pictures. The walls were an off-white that had yellowed slightly with age, and the air smelled faintly of bleach, as if someone had rushed to clean just before I got there. The living room window overlooked the street, but the curtains were drawn tight, letting in only a thin line of dusk light that made the dust float in the air. I dropped my bag in the bedroom. The bed was neatly made, though the sheets looked a little too crisp, like they'd never actually been slept in. On the dresser sat an old lamp with a yellow shade, and next to it, a digital clock blinking 12 o'clock, like the power had gone out recently. It wasn't cozy, but it would do. That first night, I didn't think much of the strange little details. I showered, answered some work emails, then went to bed early. The mattress was stiff, the sheets scratchy, but I was too tired to care. The house was so quiet it felt suffocating, no cars passing by, no footsteps upstairs, no pipes groaning in the walls. Just silence. I remember lying awake for a while, staring at the ceiling, convinced I could feel the air shift with every breath. My phone said it was 2:14 a.m. the last time I checked. Eventually, exhaustion won, and I drifted into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, I woke up disoriented. The curtains were still shut tight, letting only a dim gray light seep through. My phone was on the nightstand where I'd left it, and for a second, everything felt normal. Until I noticed the door. I was almost certain I'd locked it the night before. I always lock doors when I'm staying in a strange place, it's second nature to me. But the knob was turned just slightly, like the door hadn't been pulled shut all the way. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe I'd been too tired and forgotten. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been in there. I got up, made some coffee in the kitchen, and tried to ignore the knot in my stomach. I told myself I was just being paranoid. But as I sipped the bitter, stale brew, something nagged at me. The living room curtains were open now. Wide open. I hadn't touched them the night before. The day went on as normal. I worked on my laptop, scrolled through my phone, and tried not to think about it. By evening, I convinced myself it was all in my head. Maybe I had left the door cracked. Maybe I had opened the curtains and forgotten. That night, I slept a little easier, though I still double-checked the locks and even set a chair under the doorknob, just to be sure. The next morning, everything seemed fine. Too fine. I was drinking coffee at the kitchen table when I noticed a stack of papers in the corner of the counter. At first, I thought they were just old mail, but curiosity got the better of me. I pulled them closer. They weren't mail. They were photographs. And not just any photographs. They were pictures of me. In the first one, I was asleep in the bed, my head turned slightly toward the camera. In another, I was on my side, blanket pulled halfway up, my mouth parted just slightly. Each photo was taken from the same angle, standing at the foot of the bed, looking down at me. The worst part? The timestamp on the bottom corner of each photo. Last night. Every single picture had been taken while I was asleep, less than 12 hours earlier. I dropped the stack onto the counter, my heart hammering in my chest so loudly I swore it would burst. My mouth went dry, and I stood frozen in place, waiting, half expecting to hear footsteps behind me. But the house was silent. Too silent. That was the moment I realized something was very, very wrong with this Airbnb. And I had no idea if I was still alone inside it. I must have stood there for a full minute, staring at those photographs like they might suddenly vanish if I blinked too hard. My hands were shaking so badly that one of the pictures slipped from the stack and slid across the counter, landing face up on the floor. I didn't want to pick it up, but my eyes wouldn't look away. It was me, peacefully asleep. My body angled just slightly toward the lens. My skin prickled because I realized I remembered that exact position. I'd woken up for a second in the middle of the night, rolled over and drifted back off. Someone had been in the room with me, inches away, close enough to hear me breathe. I scanned the kitchen, my heart hammering in my ears. Every corner, every shadow felt hostile now. The air seemed colder, heavier, as if the walls themselves were leaning in on me. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and opened the camera roll, praying I'd find something that explained this away. Maybe I had somehow taken the photos myself. A sleepwalking episode, a prank, something rational. But there was nothing, no trace of the pictures on my phone. I considered calling the police right then, but a strange hesitation stopped me. What was I supposed to say? Hello, yes, I rented an Airbnb and someone took creepy photos of me sleeping. They'd ask if I had proof. I'd show them the pictures. And then what? Who took them? How? When? The silence pressed in again, so thick I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the cheap wall clock, and something else. A creak. From upstairs. The house was small, but it had a narrow staircase that led to a second floor I hadn't bothered exploring. The host's description had said storage only, and I figured it was locked. But now, staring at the base of that staircase, I realized it wasn't. The door at the top was cracked open. My throat tightened. I could feel eyes on me, watching, waiting for me to move. I backed slowly into the living room, clutching my phone like a weapon. My every instinct screamed at me to leave immediately, to grab my bag and run out the front door without looking back. But part of me wanted answers. I needed to know who had been in my room. The stairs groaned under my weight as I forced myself up one by one. The air grew cooler with each step, and the smell changed, less bleach, more dust, and something faintly metallic. My skin crawled with goosebumps. When I reached the top, I paused in the doorway. The room beyond was dim, lit only by the thin daylight filtering through warped blinds. Dust coated every surface. And then I saw it. Against the far wall stood a small wooden desk. On it sat an old laptop, a tangled mess of wires, and a digital camera. The camera's strap dangled over the edge, swaying slightly as if it had been disturbed moments ago. But what froze me in place was the wall above the desk. It was covered in photographs. Hundreds of them, maybe more, tacked and taped in uneven rows. Every single one was of me. Some from the past 2 nights, me turning in my sleep, me curled under the blanket, me staring at the ceiling with my eyes half open. Others from earlier that morning, sitting at the kitchen table, pouring coffee. And then, unbelievably, a photo from just minutes ago. Me, standing in the kitchen, looking down at the photographs in my hands. My stomach dropped so hard I nearly fell. That picture hadn't even existed when I came upstairs. Which meant, whoever took it was here. In the house. Right now. I stumbled back into the hallway, my pulse roaring in my ears. The boards under my feet creaked, and that's when I heard it again, footsteps. Not mine. Slow. Careful. Coming from somewhere behind me. I bolted down the stairs 2 at a time, nearly tripping over my own legs. My only thought was get out, get out, get out. I reached the front door, yanked the handle. Locked. But not with the simple latch I'd used the night before. A chain had been added, one I hadn't seen until now, fastened across the frame from the inside. My shaking hands clawed at it, fumbling to unhook the metal, but it wouldn't budge. Behind me, the creaking steps grew louder, closer. I turned, my back pressed against the door. And in the dim light of the living room, I swore I saw movement. A figure just at the edge of the shadows, standing perfectly still. Watching. I blinked and it was gone. But the photographs upstairs were real. And I knew I wasn't leaving this house as easily as I thought. I didn't know what to do. My back pressed against the locked front door, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hold my phone. Every survival instinct I had was firing at once, but my mind felt foggy, like I'd woken up in the middle of a nightmare that hadn't decided which way to go yet. The figure I'd seen in the living room shadows still haunted the edges of my vision. I knew there'd been someone or something there. The question was whether it was still here now or if it was waiting somewhere I couldn't see. I forced myself to breathe slowly. My heart was pounding so hard it was almost painful. I tried calling 911. No signal. The screen flashed no service, even though just minutes earlier I'd been texting a coworker. My phone was at 78% battery. I tried Wi-Fi calling. Nothing. I wasn't cut off. I was blocked off. The creaking above me had stopped. The silence was worse. I realized then that I'd left my bag, wallet, keys, everything upstairs in the bedroom. Part of me wanted to run back up, grab it, and try breaking a window. But another part whispered that if I went back up there, I wouldn't come down again. The air felt heavier, almost charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. A low hum seemed to vibrate faintly through the house, just at the edge of hearing. And then my phone buzzed. A new message. I looked down, my stomach flipping when I saw the sender, an unknown number. No contact name. Just a gray circle where a photo should be. The message read, "Stop looking." My breath hitched. My thumb hovered over the screen. Before I could reply, another text came through. "Go back upstairs." I froze. My first instinct was to throw the phone across the room. Instead, I pressed the lock button and held it against my chest like a talisman. My eyes darted toward the stairs again. That's when I heard it, a soft click like a camera shutter, coming from upstairs. I bolted into the kitchen, yanked open drawers, desperate for something, anything, to use as a weapon. All I found was a dull paring knife. My fingers tightened around the handle anyway. Another click. Louder this time. I told myself to run for the window. Smash it if I had to. But as I stepped into the living room, my feet stopped on their own. Because the figure was back. Standing at the base of the stairs now, half hidden in shadow. It was tall, too tall to be anyone I knew, with a kind of stillness that made my skin crawl. I couldn't make out a face. Just the suggestion of a head tilted slightly, as though it was watching me with curiosity. It didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. I clutched the knife so hard my knuckles went white. "Stay back," I managed to croak, but my voice sounded small and weak, swallowed by the house. Then it tilted its head the other way. Slowly. Deliberately. I backed toward the kitchen window, reaching with my free hand for the latch. But before I could lift it, I felt a rush of cold air sweep through the room, like every door had opened at once. My ears popped. The light flickered. And the figure vanished. Not like it had walked away, like it had simply blinked out of existence. I stood there trembling, my breath coming in shallow gasps. My phone buzzed again. This time the message was an image. A photo of me. Standing exactly where I was right now, one hand on the window latch, the other gripping the knife. The timestamp read, 3 seconds ago. I dropped the knife. The realization hit me like a wave. Whoever, or whatever, was doing this wasn't just in the house. It was watching me in real time. I needed to leave. Now. I ran to the back door, fumbling with the lock until it clicked. I yanked it open and stumbled out into the yard. The air outside was damp and cold, heavy with the smell of wet earth. For a moment, relief flooded me. I was out. But the yard wasn't what I remembered from the listing photos. The fence was gone. The neighboring houses were gone. It was just open land stretching out into gray mist in every direction, like the house had been dropped in the middle of nowhere. The street, the cars, the trees, all of it had vanished. I spun around. The back door hung open behind me, but beyond it, the kitchen looked different. Darker. Like a photograph of the room rather than the room itself. My phone buzzed again. One final message. There's nowhere else to go. I stared into the mist, my legs shaking, the cold seeping into my bones. The hum in the air was louder now, more like a vibration under my feet. It wasn't just in the house, it was everywhere. And somewhere behind me, I heard that soft, unmistakable sound again. The click of a camera shutter. The mist clung to my skin like damp fabric. I stood frozen in the middle of the yard, staring into a void that shouldn't exist. Where there should have been houses, cars, streetlights, there was nothing but endless gray, swirling like smoke. I turned back to the Airbnb. The house stood stark and silent, its windows dark now, like empty eye sockets. I could still see the kitchen through the back door, but it didn't look right. The colors were muted, the angles slightly wrong, as though I was looking at a distorted copy of the room I had just escaped. The vibration in the air grew stronger, rattling through my bones. I realized then, it wasn't just sound. It was a pulse, like a heartbeat too big to belong to anything human. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I hesitated, every instinct screaming not to look, but I couldn't help myself. Another photo. This one showed me outside, standing exactly where I was now. But in the picture, I wasn't alone. Behind me, in the mist, a tall shadow loomed. Its edges were blurred, but its outline was unmistakable, the same figure I'd seen in the living room, head tilted as if in curiosity. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. The mist churned, shifting as though something enormous had moved just out of sight. But when I squinted, there was nothing. Just gray. The phone buzzed again. Another photo. Now the figure was closer, directly behind me in the image, its height dwarfing mine, its shape impossibly thin and elongated. The timestamp, now. I whipped around again, knife forgotten, breath catching in my throat. The mist swallowed everything beyond arm's length. I couldn't see it, but I felt it, something vast standing just outside my vision, watching. Waiting. I backed slowly toward the house, even though every part of me screamed not to go back inside. The house was a trap. But so was the yard. The mist wasn't freedom. It was containment. And somehow I understood I was being kept here. By it. I reached the doorway and hesitated. Inside, the kitchen looked frozen in time, like a still image waiting for me to step back into it. My pulse hammered in my ears. I wanted to run, but where? Into the mist, where the figure was closing in. Or back into a house that photographed me while I slept. The choice was no choice at all. I stepped back inside. The instant I crossed the threshold, the air changed. Warmer. Heavier. The hum dulled to a faint murmur again, though I could feel it pulsing beneath the floorboards. The door slammed shut behind me with a force that made the walls shudder. I jumped, heart in my throat. When I spun around, the door wasn't there anymore. Just solid wall, paint cracked and yellowed. I staggered backward. My phone slipped from my hand and clattered against the floor. The screen lit up. A video had started playing on its own. It showed me. Not now, not earlier, but from last night. The grainy footage was from the corner of the bedroom. I watched myself roll over in bed, eyes closed, unaware of the figure standing in the shadows near the dresser. I froze, ball rising in my throat. The figure moved closer in the video, step by step, until it was looming over my sleeping form. Then it leaned down. The screen went black. I couldn't breathe. My pulse thundered in my skull. That wasn't just photographs. They'd been filming me. Recording me. The phone buzzed again. One final message appeared. Go to the bedroom. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Smash it. Destroy it. But something told me it wouldn't matter. The air grew colder. Every shadow in the room seemed to stretch just slightly longer. And from down the hallway, I heard the faintest sound. A slow, deliberate creak. The bed shifting under someone's weight. The sound of the mattress springs creaking echoed faintly down the hallway, like someone had just sat on the edge of the bed. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. I stood in the kitchen gripping the counter with both hands, my knuckles white, staring at the dark corridor that led back to the bedroom. The air was different now, heavier, as if the house itself was holding its breath. My ears rang faintly with that low hum, which had returned, vibrating at the edges of hearing. It felt like the floor beneath me was gently pulsing, syncing with my heartbeat. Another creak. This one slower, deeper. Someone or something was shifting its weight on the bed. I bent to pick up my phone, but the screen had gone black. No matter how many times I pressed the power button, it stayed dead. The glow from it had been the last warm light in the house. Now only the dim yellow bulb above the kitchen sink flickered weakly, casting long, trembling shadows. I told myself to run. Smash a window, claw at the walls, anything. But my body didn't listen. My feet moved toward the hallway on their own, each step slow and deliberate, like I was walking underwater. As I passed the living room, something caught my eye. The photographs that had been scattered on the counter were gone. All of them. The space was empty except for a single picture face down. I stopped. My trembling fingers flipped it over. It was me standing in the hallway, holding that very same picture. The timestamp read, 1 second from now. I dropped it and stumbled back, my pulse hammering. I didn't even try to understand anymore. Whatever was happening here had moved beyond logic. I reached the doorway of the bedroom. The smell hit me first, cold, metallic, like old blood and damp stone. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of the blinking digital clock on the dresser. And the bed. The bed was no longer neatly made. The blanket had been pulled back, the pillow sunken as though someone were lying there. But there was no one visible. The creaking came again, louder this time, but I couldn't see what was making it. The mattress sagged slightly, indenting in real time. Invisible weight shifting. My breath came out in short gasps, frosting in the air even though the house had been warm before. I wanted to back out of the room, but instead I stepped forward, drawn by some terrible magnetism. That's when the blinds snapped shut on their own. The thin gray light vanished, plunging the room into almost complete darkness except for the faint green glow of the digital clock. Shadows thickened in the corners, stretching across the walls like spilled ink. The hum grew louder, a deep vibration in my chest. Then the mattress rose, just slightly, and a figure began to take shape above it. Not appearing all at once, but assembling itself from the darkness, like smoke condensing. It was tall. Taller than the ceiling should allow. Its limbs were long and thin, almost insect-like, its head tilted with that same unnatural curiosity. But its face, if it had one, was only a blur, as though every time I tried to focus, my eyes slid off it. It was leaning over the bed, mimicking the exact posture from the video on my phone. And then it turned. Slowly. Directly toward me. My legs nearly gave out. Every cell in my body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. The figure straightened, impossibly tall now, its head almost brushing the ceiling. The hum became a low, grinding sound, vibrating through the walls. It raised one impossibly long arm. The motion was deliberate, slow, like a spider deciding how to move its legs. Its fingers, or what passed for fingers, ended in shadowy points. And it pointed at me. The digital clock blinked 12 o'clock again. All the sound in the house cut off at once, the hum, the ticking, even the faint creaks of the wood. Silence crashed over me, so absolute it felt like pressure in my skull. Then, from the figure's blurred face, came a single sound. A camera shutter. Click. And the room went black. The darkness was suffocating, thick as tar. I couldn't see my own hands in front of my face. For a long moment, there was nothing, no sound, no movement, no sense of time passing. Just the echo of that camera shutter reverberating in my skull. Then, faintly, I heard breathing. Not mine. It was low and steady, too close. I froze, forcing myself to stay as silent as possible, though every ragged breath from my own chest felt deafening in comparison. My hand brushed the dresser. The lamp was still there. I fumbled for the switch, desperate for light. My fingers found it, and I twisted. The bulb flared for half a second, casting a dim yellow glow. And, in that flash, I saw it. The figure stood less than a foot away, towering over me, its featureless face inches from mine. My stomach lurched so violently I nearly collapsed. But before I could scream, the bulb burst with a sharp pop, plunging me back into total darkness. I stumbled backward, my hips slamming into the edge of the bed. The mattress shifted under me as though something invisible was still lying there, unwilling to move. Then my phone lit up on the floor across the room. The screen glowed with a new image. It was me. Not sleeping. Not standing in the kitchen. Not holding the knife. Me right now, in the dark bedroom, my mouth open mid-scream, eyes wide with terror. The timestamp, live. My throat locked. My body shook uncontrollably. I couldn't bring myself to pick it up. The glow illuminated the floorboards, but beyond its reach the shadows seemed to move, writhing like living things. Another photo appeared. This one from a slightly different angle, as if taken from the ceiling above me. Then another, closer. And another. The screen refreshed again and again, rapid fire, as though dozens of cameras were flashing around me at once. Click. 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 The air stank of ozone, sharp and electric, making my eyes water. My skin prickled all over, hairs rising as though static had filled the room. I snapped. I lunged for the phone, clutching it so tightly the glass dug into my palm. The camera app was open now, but not in my control. The front-facing lens showed my terrified face, but behind me was the figure. Its head tilted down toward my shoulder, longer and thinner than anything human had a right to be. Its limbs bent at wrong angles, folding inward as if it was wrapping itself around me. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked back at the phone, it was still there, closer this time, its blurred face hovering where my neck should be. I dropped the phone, heart racing, lungs burning. The room stretched and warped around me, like the walls were bending inward. The humming returned, louder than ever, shaking the floor and rattling the dresser drawers. The air turned freezing cold, every breath slicing my throat like ice. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it all stopped. Silence. The hum was gone. The vibration ceased. I blinked. The room looked normal again. The lamp was whole, the blinds open, daylight streaming in. The bed was made. My phone lay face up on the floor. The screen was dark, as though it had never turned on at all. For a moment, I thought I had dreamt the whole thing. A hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But when I picked up the phone, my blood turned to ice. The gallery was full. Hundreds of photos. All of me. Every angle of the bedroom. Every position I'd slept in. Every terrified expression I'd worn just moments ago. The last picture was different. Not of me. It was of the Airbnb's front door. Wide open. And the timestamp wasn't from last night or from minutes ago. It was from tomorrow.